picture this. It's early morning. An Afghan hound rises from its bed in a, completely quiet, still house.
Just a totally serene scene.
Exactly. Its incredibly long silken coat, which is partially parted down the back, just barely sweeps against the wooden leg of a dining room chair as it walks past. It pauses near a window for a second, standing like a carved statue because something outside caught its eye.
Right.
And then it just quietly, effortlessly pads into the kitchen to start the day.
I mean, to a casual observer watching this dog in that specific moment, it looks like the easiest, most sculptural animal in the world to share a home with. It really exudes this sense of effortless, almost aristocratic calm.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah.
Because that tranquil, effortless image is exactly what we're going to tear apart today. Our mission for this deep dive is to completely shatter that illusion of effortless peace.
It is definitely an illusion.
Yeah, we were pulling from a really fascinating stack of sources, breed manuals, veterinary insights, handler notes. And what you quickly realize is that the perfect, quiet morning moment we just described doesn't happen naturally. It is entirely manufactured.
Completely manufactured. What you don't see is the intense, invisible scaffolding of planning, time, and money required to create that single moment.
Right. Living with an Afghan hound is not about casually admiring a beautiful creature in your living room.
Yeah.
It's a full commitment to an independent athlete's body, a staggeringly complex coat, hardwired ancient instincts, and, well, a very specific biological sensitivity.
Yeah, it's a lifestyle, not just a pet.
So whether you are a dog lover or just someone fascinated by how complex biological systems clash with modern human convenience, you are going to want to hear this. Because understanding the massive gap between the appearance of this breed and the daily reality of managing it is basically a masterclass in setting expectations.
And that friction between appearance and reality, it starts the second that majestic dog steps out your front door. Because that calm dog doesn't stay pristine by magic. The environment is constantly actively conspiring to ruin that coat.
Which confuses me, honestly, because I see this online all the time. People search for low-shedding dogs, and the Afghan Hound always pops up on the list.
Right, they do.
So to a normal person, a low-shedding dog implies low maintenance. Like, if the hair stays on the dog instead of dropping onto my couch, shouldn't that make my life incredibly easy?
What's fascinating here is that conflating low visible shedding with low maintenance is a fundamental misunderstanding of canine biology. I mean, they are completely different mechanical realities.
How so?
Well, yes, you aren't going to have tumbleweeds of fur blowing across your hardwood floors. But because the hair stays on the dog, it continues to grow into this dense, sweeping net. And that net requires a staggering amount of daily intervention.
Because the structure of the hair is designed to catch things, right?
Yeah.
I kept reading the sources and picturing the dog as like a giant walking microfiber mop.
That is the perfect analogy. It comes down to the density and the cuticles of the hair. When the dog walks through a yard, the sheer volume of the coat creates static friction, and the hair cuticles interlock with whatever they brush against.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we are talking about leaves, mud, dust, seeds, twigs, and even just simple moisture from the morning grass. The hair physically grabs the environment and pulls it inward toward the skin.
So imagine you're rushing to work on a rainy Tuesday morning. For a normal dog owner, maybe you grab a towel, do a quick wipe of the paws, and you're done.
Not with an Afghan hound. Bringing the dog inside triggers a whole operational protocol.
Like you need towels staged at every entrance, right?
Every entrance. Before that dog is allowed to settle onto a rug or a sofa, you are physically running your hands through the coat, checking for burrs or seeds that have woven their way near the skin. You are investing in washable furniture covers and dedicating a specific space in your home just for this daily detangling.
And it even extends to incredibly mundane things like drinking water.
Oh, absolutely.
The sources mention something called ear furnishings, which sounds like interior design, but it's actually a logistical nightmare for a thirsty dog.
Ear furnishings are the incredibly long, heavy locks of hair that cascade down the sides of the dog's face, blending into a beard. If you don't physically tie those furnishings back, often using a fabric tube called a snood, before the dog eats or drinks, that hair is going to drag straight through the water bowl.
It just acts like a sponge, right?
Exactly like a sponge. It soaks up the water, and then the dog drags that wet beard across your floors, your lap, and their own bedding every single day.
So you basically have to be mentally 2 steps ahead of the dog just to facilitate a drink of water.
You really do.
But let's talk about actual bath day, because I assumed you could just stick them in a tub, lather them up, rinse them with a shower head, and let him air dry in the living room.
If you let an Afghan hound air dry, you are creating a medical emergency.
Wait, really? A medical emergency?
Yes. The coat is so dense that ambient air cannot penetrate down to the skin level. If you leave that coat wet, the moisture becomes trapped under layers of heavy hair. That creates a dark, warm greenhouse environment right against the dog's body.
Oh, which sounds like the perfect breeding ground for infections.
Exactly. Severe yeast and bacterial infections. Furthermore, wet hair shrinks and binds as it dries, which turns into cement-like mats that pull painfully against the skin.
Ouch. So it's definitely not a quick towel off.
Yeah.
The sources emphasize that drying and brushing require high-velocity blow dryers and a technique called line brushing.
Right.
Explain the mechanics of line brushing to me, because it sounds like it takes hours.
It can. Line brushing is a highly tactile, methodical process. You don't just drag a brush over the top of the dog. You start at the bottom of the dog's legs, lift a layer of hair out of the way, and brush the layer underneath entirely from the root to the tip.
And then you just move up.
Yeah, you drop the next layer down and repeat. You do this horizontally, section by section, inch by inch, over the entire body.
Which means the brushing isn't actually just a vanity project to make them look pretty for visitors.
Yeah.
It's described in the text as a non-negotiable, full-body physical exam.
That is exactly the utility of it. Because you are systematically exposing every square inch of the dog's skin, you aren't just untangling hair, you are feeling their muscle tone.
Checking for issues.
Right. You are checking for hidden skin lesions, ticks, or unusual lumps that would otherwise be completely invisible under the coat. It is a critical health check disguised as a beauty routine.
All of this meticulous, delicate coat care gives a distinct impression that we are dealing with a fragile porcelain doll. It sounds like an indoor showpiece that you just occasionally dust off.
It really does sound like that.
But underneath all that high-maintenance hair is a hunting machine. The transition from the grooming table to the outside world feels like a total paradox.
It is the defining paradox of the Sighthound family. You have a creature that will sleep upside down on your sofa for 14 hours, looking like a stuffed animal. But historically, this breed was engineered to run down fast-moving prey across the rugged, brutal, mountainous terrain of Afghanistan.
They're built for extreme physical performance.
Their anatomy is built for explosive speed and agility, absolutely.
Okay, so they need a run. But I assume I just, drive to the local neighborhood park, unclip the leash, and let them go wild, right?
That is a recipe for disaster. The protocol for exercising an Afghan hound requires what amounts to a Secret Service perimeter sweep.
Wait, a Secret Service sweep?
Basically, yeah. Because they're visual hunters, meaning they track prey by sight over long distances, they will lock onto a target and run blindly toward it. You must travel to a securely fenced area with fencing at least 6 feet high.
And I'm guessing you can't just trust the fence blindly.
No, you cannot just trust the fence. You, the owner, have to walk the perimeter. You are scanning for gaps under the chain link, latches that might be loose, or small animals hiding in the brush that could trigger a chase.
And once I've secured the perimeter, then I can just unleash them and let them hit top speed?
No, you have to manage their muscle physiology first.
Oh, right, because of the way they're built.
Right. Sighthounds have a uniquely high concentration of fast-twitch muscle fibers. These fibers are designed to rapidly burn ATP for explosive 0 to 40 acceleration.
So they go fast, instantly.
Exactly. If you take a dog from resting in an air-conditioned car and immediately let them launch into a full sprint, those cold muscle fibers can literally tear.
So they need a biological idle before they hit the gas, like warming up a high-performance sports car engine.
Precisely. You have to walk them calmly around the enclosure, allowing their blood flow to increase and the muscles to literally warm up before any sprinting happens.
And here is the kicker for me when reading the sources. All of this elaborate logistical planning, the driving, the fence checking, the physical warm-up, it all supports just a few brief minutes of the actual sprinting the breed was built for.
It is a massive investment of time for a 5-minute physical payoff. Once they execute that sprint, they burn through their energy reserves quickly.
And then it's over.
Yeah, then you immediately move into a cool-down walk, hydrate them, perform another coat check to remove whatever the hair swept up from the field, and carefully load them back into the vehicle.
I can hear people listening to this and thinking, well, I have a big half-acre backyard, so I bypass all of this. But the sources completely shut that idea down.
A large backyard provides convenience for bathroom breaks, but it is biologically insufficient for an Afghan hound. They are intelligent visual explorers.
So they just get bored.
Very bored. A static backyard quickly becomes incredibly boring to them. It does not provide the novel spatial stimulus, the straightaways for genuine sprinting, or the shared exploration with their owner that they require.
Which means, conversely, if you live in a dense city apartment, you aren't automatically disqualified from owning one.
Not at all. Square footage in the home matters far less than human commitment outside the home. If an apartment dweller is consistently willing to put in the time to travel to secure running traps and provide that specific, safe outdoor movement, the dog will be perfectly content resting on a small apartment sofa for the remaining 23 hours of the day.
But the biological reality of this dog doesn't pause when you come back to the apartment. If we connect this to the bigger picture, that exact same fast-twitch visual tracking instinct that makes them sprint beautifully across a park, well, it's the same instinct that creates total chaos if the neighbor's cat runs across your line of sight.
Oh, absolutely. The neurology of a sighthound is hardwired for motion. When an Afghan hound sees a small, furry object moving rapidly, it triggers an involuntary predatory sequence in their brain. Orient, stalk, chase, grab.
And for them, the chase part is huge.
For a sighthound, the chase portion is overwhelmingly powerful. The visual stimulus literally overrides their auditory processing.
Wait, so they won't even hear you?
They will not hear you calling their name because their brain has chemically hyper-focused on the moving target.
Wait, but the sources specifically note cases where an Afghan hound lives perfectly peacefully with a family cat indoors. They share a rug, they sleep together. Doesn't that prove the prey drive can be trained away or socialized out of them?
It proves that dogs are contextual learners, but it doesn't erase their biology. An indoor cat that the dog has known since puppyhood is categorized by the dog's brain as pack, or simply static environmental furniture.
Okay, but if that exact same dog steps outside,
If it steps outside and sees an unfamiliar rabbit or even unfamiliar neighborhood cat darting under a bush, the context changes entirely. The fast, erratic movement in an outdoor environment re-engages that predatory sequence immediately.
so an outdoor fluffy thing moving fast is always prey, regardless of indoor behavior.
Always. You can never assume that peaceful indoor coexistence translates to outdoor reliability. Physical barriers and constant supervision remain a daily reality for the life of the dog.
Here's where it gets really interesting to me. The social dynamic of this breed indoors is so counterintuitive to what we expect from a dog. When I think of a dog, I think of a creature that sprints to the door, wagging its tail furiously when a guest arrives.
Right, but the Afghan hound is described as being deeply aloof. They are deeply affectionate with their core humans, but they express it with intense subtlety.
Like what?
Affection looks like choosing to sleep in the same room as you, or quietly tracking you from room to room, just watching. They have a profound dignity.
The sources describe their reaction to house guests perfectly. Someone rings the doorbell, and this striking, elegant creature doesn't rush them. It just stands there, watching from a comfortable distance across the room, like an elegant introvert at a cocktail party who has no interest in small talk.
Which creates a fascinating psychological problem for humans. When humans see a beautiful, flowing, visually stunning dog, our hardwired instinct is to walk directly up to it, reach over its head, and touch it.
Of course, that's what we do.
Right. A part of owning this breed is constantly playing defense against human nature. You have to actively coach the humans around you.
You literally have to train your guests before they enter the house.
You do. You have to instruct visitors. Do not make direct eye contact, do not reach over the dog's head, and do not chase it around the room demanding a reaction.
Just ignore them, basically.
You have to let the dog process the newcomer's presence and approach on its own terms, which might take 10 minutes or it might not happen at all. And you have to explain to your guests that the dog isn't being mean. Its specific temperament just requires social processing time.
And when you introduce children into that environment, the rules of social engagement become even more rigid.
Because children are erratic. They move fast, they make high-pitched noises, and they grab. Afghan hounds can coexist beautifully with respectful children, but the dog must always be provided an absolute retreat space.
Like a safe zone.
A bed or a quiet corner where the dog knows, universally, that if it goes there, it becomes invisible and untouchable to the children.
So when you add all this up, managing an introverted, visually triggered, fast-twitch athlete, wrapped in a sweeping microfiber net, it requires a literal restructuring of your life, your environment, and your wallet. Let's look at the logistical friction this creates.
It creates a lot.
Weather, for example. They're from the mountains of Afghanistan, which gets incredibly cold. So a snowy winter in a city like Chicago should be perfect for them, right?
You would think so, but you have to factor in modern living. A modern Afghan hound living in a climate-controlled 70-degree house has a totally different In the summer, you are entirely rearranging your sleep schedule. You are waking up before dawn to exercise them when the pavement is cool, actively mapping out walking routes based on where the shade falls, and being hypervigilant about the temperature inside your vehicle.
Speaking of vehicles, the car logistics stood out to me as incredibly stressful. You need a large SUV just to fit a dog this tall, but it's the entry and exit mechanics that are wild. The sources explain that an open car door is basically a fatal error waiting to happen.
Think about the sensory experience of a car trunk opening for a visual hunter. Suddenly, a massive panoramic view of the world is revealed.
Oh, right.
If the dog is unsecured and its eyes lock onto a plastic bag blowing across a parking lot 300 yards away, the launch sequence is initiated. They will explode out of that vehicle like a coiled spring.
So how do you manage that?
Through rigorous habituation, you build an unbreakable sequence. The car stops, you attach the leash to the secure harness while the door is only cracked open, you lock your grip, and only then do you fully open the door and give the command to exit. It has to be muscle memory for both of you.
What about when you aren't around? Dealing with alone time must be complicated given their intelligence. The sources mention needing to discern between a dog that is just chilling while you're at work and a dog experiencing true separation distress.
True distress in a sighthound is not just looking sad by the window. Distress manifests mechanically. You'll see frantic pacing, destructive chewing specifically concentrated around door frames or windows as they try to dig through the exits.
Wow, that's intense.
It is. Excessive drooling that leaves their front legs soaked, or a fully house-trained dog suddenly eliminating indoors purely out of panic. If you see those physiological signs, you cannot just leave them alone and hope they get used to it. You have to intervene with professional desensitization training.
Let's talk about the financial and mental load of this architecture, because keeping the system running is incredibly expensive. We're talking about premium food for an athletic metabolism, installing 6-foot privacy fencing, investing in professional high-velocity dryers, routine dental care, parasite prevention.
Which is huge because that coat hides ticks perfectly.
Exactly. And the inevitable emergency vet visits for muscle tears or skin issues.
And it completely dictates who you can hire for help. You cannot just use a gig economy app to hire a random teenager to walk your Afghan hound while you are at work.
Right, because if the walker doesn't understand the visual triggers, they're going to get their shoulder dislocated when the dog spots a squirrel.
Exactly. You need a highly specialized pet sitter who understands strict door management, the mechanics of the prey drive, the secure harness systems, and the daily coat check routine. A single casual mistake by a careless pet sitter, like leaving a front door cracked open for 5 seconds, can end in a devastating tragedy.
Keeping track of all of this, the complex grooming schedules, the emergency protocols, the specific medications, the dietary needs, it's an overwhelming amount of data for a human brain to hold.
It really is.
Which is why it makes total sense that the source text brings up using a dedicated digital tool. They mention the Vital Pet app specifically as a way to consolidate all these health records and routines into one accessible place.
That kind of organization is essential.
And of course, the standard disclaimer applies. An app is just an organizational tool. Any actual medical concerns should always be diagnosed by a licensed veterinarian. But having that mountain of data immediately shareable with a specialized pet sitter is critical.
This raises an important question about the kind of person who is actually equipped to take on this mental load.
Which perfectly leads to my final question. Based on everything we've discussed, the fact that this breed flips the script on everything we traditionally expect a dog to be, does previous dog ownership even matter? If I've owned 3 golden retrievers, am I ready for an Afghan Hound?
The answer is genuinely surprising. Your resume of past pets might actually be a detriment if it created rigid expectations.
A detriment.
Yes. If you are a highly experienced dog owner, but you go into this relationship expecting snappy, automatic obedience, joyful, off-leash freedom in the woods, or a dog that enthusiastically greets every stranger on the sidewalk, you will fail spectacularly with this breed. You will spend your life frustrated because you are fighting their biology.
So an expert owner could completely crash and burn simply because they refuse to adapt to the dog.
Yes. Success with an Afghan hound requires emotional patience, financial readiness, and above all, a profound respect for the breed's hardwired independence, rather than a resentment of it. A first-time dog owner who humbly embraces the mechanical realities of the breed will thrive far more than a 10-time dog owner who secretly just wants a golden retriever wrapped in a glamorous coat.
So what does this all mean? Let's bring this entirely back to where we started. That beautiful cinematic opening scene, the quiet house, the early morning light, the majestic floor-length coat sweeping silently over the hardwood as the dog, completely at peace, pads into the kitchen.
That peaceful animal is not a product of luck. It is the end result of a massive, invisible web of daily biological understanding.
Right. It is the secure fencing habits, the section-by-section line brushing, the financial planning, the careful psychological management of the prey drive.
All applied consistently every single day.
The beauty of the Afghan hound, both visually and behaviorally, is entirely dependent on the dedication of the human standing behind it, managing the friction between ancient biology and modern life. Which leaves you with something really fascinating to think about as we wrap up this deep dive.
Yeah.
We so often look for convenience in our modern lives, don't we? We actively seek out hobbies, habits, or pets that can just slide seamlessly into our existing schedules with absolute minimal friction. We want the world to adapt to us.
We really do.
But if a creature requires you to bend your life entirely around its unique biological nature, to fundamentally change how you walk through a park, how you open your car doors, how you observe the environment around you, well, perhaps the true reward of living with an Afghan hound isn't actually having a beautiful pet to look at.
That's something much deeper.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Perhaps the real reward is the extreme personal growth, the mandatory patience, and the profound hypervigilant observation skills that you are forced to develop within yourself, just to earn that quiet morning trust. Next time you see that sculptural, effortless dog standing quietly by a window, just remember the immense, invisible scaffolding holding that perfect moment together.